members who nobody pays. So if you see anybody doing some work for CSJ, please hold them in awe because nobody pays. Show up, they do the work that needs to be done. And with their efforts, we are able to very good solutions to things that go on in Ghana. So gets to learn something. I always learn from the CSJ platforms. And please do share your knowledge nicely with us. You may be able to pass on to the relevant quarters when the time comes. So thank you very much for making yourselves available. Thank you for coming for the program. And once again, let's learn from one another. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate your presence. And then I'll introduce another person, the CEO of the National Vaccine Institute, and the one whose hat I've been trying to wear, but have not been able to wear yet, who was the ex-executive director of the CSJ and has a heart for what we do. A man who believes in social justice, not only in word, but in doings. He doesn't like long introductions, because if I want to talk about his accolades, amazing. He led an international organization that has driven quality improvement in health systems in Ghana and beyond. I can say a lot. And he's a personal mentor in medical school, so I would introduce Dr. Soji Tete.
I just came to attend the program, and Prof is trying to make it complicated. So I'm very happy to be here. I think when we started CSG, the vision was for it to become an organization that gives voice to the voiceless. And in the work that is unfolding, peasant farmers, women, market women, informal sector workers, I think we are living up to the vision, so I'm very happy to be here.
And you can connect the dots. You are not wrong if you did, in the two introductions that I have made. Any more? That's all I have to say. Any more comments before we take a short snack break and then?
Okay, so I wanted to react to a comment from the back there which says that the loan processes should be made more friendly, and I think Maslow was mentioned. But I also think that every step along the loan process is equally important. No bank wants to have an NPL on their balance sheet, and going forward in the name of SGS, there's even an added leg to the loan assessment, and it's all to ensure that the monies that are given out, remember they're people's money. So I just want to say that every step is important. Let's work together. If you are looking for a loan, whatever you are asked to bring, the KYC, everything in between is very important. So let's collaborate and make it easier. The banks make more money from giving out loans, but meaning that the processes should be sidestepped to ensure that people get the money. So let's work together. Thank you.
You and I know that you can still make it simpler. You and I know that sign here, sign here, sign here, sign. Yeah, we get it. But we are pleading that
so
it can still be made simpler. I believe so.
My concern is about our productivity. For example, the tomato issue. We all know that we prefer Burkina tomato than our own tomato because our tomato is watery, than we all know. Okay, so if there will be a production, we have to meet the quality. Okay, if the quality is not there, the buyers will still go in for the Burkina tomato, which farmers will still run at a loss. So what are we doing to fix the quality?
Yeah, I think that we have had discussions around this, and I think that from the discussion, my impression is that something is being done about it, It has to do with climate, it has to do with adaptability. Of course, there are more water bodies in Ghana than in Burkina Faso. So of course our tomatoes get water. And so I don't blame our tomatoes for being watery. But even be that as it may, I still think that it's an acquired taste. It's just like Ghana rice and foreign rice. It becomes an acquired taste. And I believe that if we have, like has been explained, a national drive that we have already been told of to promote Ghana things, I think we will change. And so I believe that the direction that the government is taking to put us on track is the right direction, and I think we should move forward. But I believe that the people in agri and thinking about agribusiness would also be looking at innovations to look at how do we create even the climate to allow this variety of tomato to be grown in Ghana, because we have greenhouses we have greenhouse farming that is taking place. So there are so many things that are possible. But me, what I like is the intentional policy direction that has been told us in this place. So I believe that we are on the right path.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, I want to respond to this.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Chief Dr. Joseph Adams, Global Ambassador for Peacekeepers and UN Ambassador for Peacekeepers as well. I just want to make it clear what she just said. Ghana, I understand she said that Ghana, we have a watery tomatoes, correct me if I'm wrong. As compared to Burkina, they really have a reduction on quality one. But I really want to focus on the health-wise. The consumption of Ghana tomatoes, and those in agribusiness or agribusiness advise us. We've been taking the Ghana tomato since we were young. So let's look at the health benefit of Ghana. Did it affect us as compared to Burkina tomatoes?
Thank you. That's a very interesting research question. Does watery tomato prolong lives or dry tomatoes prolong lives? Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right. It's okay. I want to observe what we visited a Peasant farmer for a case visit, and there are some complaints when we asked about the Peasant farmers. One of the complaints is that with the good banks to seek for funds, there are so much bureaucracy, and such it would before they will be able to access the fund, the season for a particular crop is over, and they will not get the fund. And when they get the fund, it becomes useless in their hands. And then secondly is that after they produce their crops in much quantity, there is no way to preserve it. And some of them spoil in their farms, and as a result, output is always zero for them to even have money to pay back what they have borrowed from the bank. So what will the agency now do to to mitigate that challenge? Thank you.
So there are two things. One is asking for a research to impact research to look at the differences in health value between the Burkina variety of tomato and the Ghana variety. I have said earlier on that the issue should not just even narrow down to tomato. It's about produce from Ghana. Because I am surprised that she talked about tomato. Because the last time she came with people from the area who also grow cassava, who also grow maize and other things. And it is not different because they also have post-harvest losses that needs a bit of intervention to be able to support weight, but also to be able to expand what they do the last time that we had the conversations with them, they were telling us about the challenges of being able to access some of these facilities. And the discussion then was for them to be able to organize themselves into these cooperatives. And then if you have the cooperative provides some sort of back support or backbone for you to be able to access some of these loans, because at least it's an organized group and you can go under the umbrella of these organized groups. There were some of the discussions around that. So I don't want us to reduce this to tomato, because it becomes a bit reactionary. But I want us to have a holistic system-wide approach to dealing with this, and that is what I would be most interested in. We have a very august guest in our midst, and at the right time we'll introduce any last comments before we round up this session. But I can see that you are feeling how these breakout sessions are going to be like, because all the issues that we are raising here, we are going to discuss policy solutions to them. And we are bringing the various groups together intentionally so that when we are making the policy recommendations, it would be holistic and everybody's voice would be included. Any last comments before we post this session?
Okay, so I work with ADB. We spoke about access to finance, the farmers not getting the required funding before the planting starts. So what we currently do is, for existing customers, we always keep in touch with them. We start the process early, because if you know you'll be planting in March, by November latest, we should start the process so that we'll be able to meet the planting season. And then when it comes to like after production, the post-harvest losses that we're suffering is because when the factories are established, they get the produce up to a certain period, and because we depend on the rains for our production, after some time, if they don't get the raw materials for production, and they are forced to shut down. But the future is value addition. If the government, in a way, can support the peasant farmers with the irrigation systems so that they can produce year-round, they'll be able to feed the factories that have also been established for value addition, and then it will solve some of the problems we face.
Thank you very much. And shall we give ourselves a round of applause for the discussions? And for me, it gives me the assurance that what we found in our research work in the communities, all the discussions that have taken place now have given credence to what we have found. And it is showing that this dialogue is needed and is very, very critical at this stage of our national discourse. And so I thank you for availing yourselves to come for this special session. And as I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know those days when we were young, when Christmas is coming, 24th, you plant the Christmas tree, and then on the 25th is the Christmas tree. So you've just seen the Christmas tree, the right thing is behind. Thank you very much for this session.
Thank you, Prof. Let's appreciate Prof for that moderation. So if you joined us midway, this is the National Policy Dialogue on financial inclusion and social protection for informal sector workers. We had a report or findings of a report presented to us on what the research shows where we are as a country as far as financial inclusion is concerned for the informal sector workers. We've heard from the Ministry of Finance as well as the Bank of Ghana on where we are and where next we are going to. And also we've listened to you, and I think that Prof would agree that we could not have assembled a better audience than this to actually go into the breakout session. But the next phase of the program is that we're going to listen to our guest of honor, who will be speaking on government's broader vision for inclusive economic transformation, on credit access, insurance, and pensions for informal players. Pretty soon you get to know who our guest of honor is, and to help us know our guest of honor, let's call the immediate executive director for the Center for Social Justice, Dr. Soji Tete. Currently he heads the Ghana Vaccine Institute, to help us introduce the guest of honor.
Thank you very much. So I would have to start by saying that it's such a great honor for me to be given the opportunity by CSJ to introduce my big sister, my mother, my political mentor, and everything. I guess it's because of that relationship that CSJ asked me to do this. And I first had my encounter with her over 20 years ago. At the time, I was the Assistant General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, and she was the Executive Director for the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. And I think that was when the name Nana Oye, later at the time, became an institution in this country, because by the time she was done with her run, anybody who wanted to talk about gender advocacy could not do so without talking about her name. And you'll recall that when she got into public office, somebody said in the news that she's an institution on her own. And that was because of the kind of mark that she made. And so that was when she got established as a lawyer, as a gender advocate. In 2024, in the elections, I had the rare privilege of serving in the frontline role with her. And I got to see other dimensions of this wonderful woman. I saw her as a tireless campaigner. And she was the chair of the Gender, Children and Social Protection Committee of the party. And I happened to be head of operations of that committee. And it was very interesting the type of campaigner she was, because I was trying to manage her, and she's unmanageable. Because here we are in a constituency struggling to, finish the activities. She's literally lost her voice. There's no voice. And I can see how people respond to her. When they see her, they get very excited and whatnot. So we need that energy. So I go to her and I say, okay, so we will deploy you. You will go and you will just say hello and whatnot. And then you sit down, and then we get the other people to make this. Because you don't have a voice. There's no way you're going to be able to talk. And I want to preserve your voice. He says, okay, so I'll do that, no problem. So the time comes, you give her the mic, and she starts screaming and shouting and rousing the whole room, and the room is on fire. And I said, well, I've never seen this thing before. It gave me the impression that politics is like, I don't know, some addiction or some adrenaline rush or something. You can't control yourself. She becomes possessed. And I'm hoping that today she will not become possessed. So that was good. But there were some other observations that I made. One had to do with her people skills. I've been in sessions with her when she would track back to her years as a gender minister. And there are people in the room she would remember by name. And these are people she worked with 8 to 10 years ago. And she would talk about trips to Tamale and Upper East and whatnot, and we did this work together. And it's so personal, and it's across the strata of society. Market women, lawyers, civil society leaders. She knows all of them by name, and they all know her by name. And that was something that I learned. that as a leader, one needs to be able to connect truly and in an authentic way. The second one had to do with her versatility. Lawyer, Wesley Girls, high profile, all of these credentials. So we get to, I think, KEA, that constituency, and they take us to the seashore to see the fisher folks. And I'm wondering how we're going to manage it, because the campaign platform is a little bit different. If you're giving formal speech, nice. When you're talking to the fisher folks, you have to be able to connect in a certain way. You have to speak a language they understand. And all of a sudden, I see my madam dancing with the fisher woman, dancing up and down, raising one leg, jumping up and down. Never seen her dancing in this manner before. Hey! And she tells me that, yeah, this is how we are going to do it. She's one with the people. Okay. Then we get to Ashama. And that day is International Women's Day, or there's some other celebrations. So once we are done with the rally, she's called upon to grant an interview. And then she says that, well, you know, according to the UN Charter, we are supposed to do this, women are the forefront of development, and very polished. And I'm watching the image of this woman giving this interview, and then what I saw in the village. I'm like, what's going on here? You know, the last bit has to do with her intellectual rigor. And that again has to do with the way she carries about her work. When the election ended, we formed the transition committees, and she was the chair of the, I think, social sector committee. And in the exchanges, you know, she had to interrogate the issues with gender. And you know, she was a former gender minister. And we got the documents very late. So I didn't think anybody had had enough time to go through the documents. So we get into session, and she is representing the NDC on the gender issues. So she comes to the place, and she starts interrogating the issues. And she starts recalling facts about things that she could only have known 8 to 10 years ago, and she remembers, and she's kept up to date. The place becomes very tense, because the people in charge are unable to answer the questions. Some even break down and start saying that I had a funeral, I didn't have time to prepare the documents we are talking about. And that was a sign to her in terms of intellectual rigor. So for me, I just considered it a blessing to have spent so much time with her and learn from her, and I could write a whole book about the things that I learned from her. But today, we are very privileged to have her to speak to us as a guest of honor. She's a lawyer, she's a gender activist, she's a public policy advocate, she's a politician, and in that sphere has served as a former Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, and she's currently the Deputy Chief of Staff in charge of administration. With a mighty round of applause, let's welcome Honorable Nana Apple.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
That was our anthem for campaign. Dr. Soji Tete, spectacular, articulate, intelligent, passionate about people. Former senior prefect of Achimota School. He was, in addition to the gender and all that, he was a very active member of the health committee for the manifesto, the reset agenda. So if you see anything health, if you listen to the launching of the primary health care and all that, Dr. Soji Tete. And also was the chair for the youth committee for Volta region. Astute. So thank you very much. And I just loved his calm demeanor. Like he had, I'll just see him, like we're doing campaign and somebody has done something and I'm upset. And I'm going to, you know, do my God things. And then I just see him approaching, and then I just decide I have to be a good girl.
And when he comes in, you see he has carefully thought through how to engage me. And even before he starts, I'm calm. So Doc, congratulations also. I'm happy to be here, and I'm really grateful to you for the hard work, especially what we are discussing today about the informal sector and about inclusive economic transformation. Apart from this, I also am a board member of the World Bank Advisory Committee on inclusive economic transformation. So I'm really happy we are discussing this. Next, please. So in terms of the history and data of Ghana's informal sector, we know that our informal sector holds extraordinary undervalued potential. We have, I'm sure if we go around this room, each and every one of us can talk about an auntie, a brother, a family member who works in the informal sector. It could be Agna who sells cloth, Kofi the carpenter. My grandmother used to sell garden eggs and had a chop bar. And yeah, the food vendor. This is the story of Ghana's real economy. Very vibrant, but largely invisible to the formal financial systems. And so we need to understand the data. If we want a transformation and we want that needed support for the informal sector and transformation of the informal sector, we must understand the data. And that is why this conference, this session, this workshop is so relevant and important at this point in time of our history. Next, please. So what is the scale of the informal sector? So I'll look at Africa and then also look at Ghana. 80% of our workforce is in the informal sector. I'm sure you've heard all this. 58% of our GDP is estimated from informal activity. For Africa, 85% of Africa's employment is within the informal sector. But less than 5% of our informal workers have a pension. We have 12 million plus informal sector workers in Ghana who have no pension. Here again, I'm sure when we go round our tables, we can speak to relatives, both close and extended, who will call, please, I'm going to hospital, I'm going to the clinic, I don't have any money. Can you please give me money? And I'm sure some of you quietly give monthly stipends to relatives and friends who are destitute not because they didn't work hard, but because they don't have a pension. To be gender sensitive, 63.4% of our labor force is also female. So when we talk about the informal sector and the 80%, we know that 64% female. Next, please. So what is the scale? And I talk about the triple gap, keeping informal sector workers behind. So the first of the triple gap is credit access. We have less than 12% of informal workers being able to access formal credit. And the sources are down, I've put them down, so I'm not going to refer to it. You don't have any credit history. There's inaccessible bank branches that exclude market women, drivers and artisans, and then there's high collateral demands. The second is insurance. Over 70% of our informal workers have no business or life insurance. Assets worth in billions remain exposed to fire, theft, flood, and there's no protection. We saw what happened in Accra, Katamanto. Was it about just a year or so? I think just a year ago. everything burned, no insurance cover. They had to use their own resources to rebuild. And that reminds me, I have to find out whether they are now looking at insurance. I have to visit them and find out whether they are now looking at insurance. The third is pensions. SNIT was designed for the formal sector.